The year is 1966. I am an apprentice radio and TV engineer. Welcome to the workshop. In this video I shall tell you about the antics that went on back in those happy days, the things we got up to, the pirate radio transmitter run from the workshop, breakfast round the cafe at 10 o'clock in the morning, over to the pub at lunchtime for a pint of mild and egg and chips, the lads in the workshop picking me up at 8 o'clock Friday evening, taking me to a nightclub. I hope you enjoy my recollections of an apprentice radio and TV engineer back in the 60s. Hi, I'm Ray, G4NSJ. Back in the 60s, I left school at 14. I've banged on about this before, but so many people have said, tell us more stories about the old days. So here we go, my first job. I went to the Labour Exchange, that's what we called it, Labour Exchange. It's the, what is it now, the job centre or something. I went there and I said, I want a job, something to do with electronics, radio and TV, something like that. Looked through her card index. Sorry, nothing like that at all. I said, oh, okay, a bit disappointed. Oh, hang on, she said, hang on, what's this? Labourer on a building site. What? What's that got to do with repairing tellies, electronics? So I thought, that's a waste of time, walked out of there. Anyway, I got onto this local radio and TV firm, got myself an interview. Come along tomorrow morning, they said. 8:30. So I turned up, smarted myself up a bit, long hair back then in the 60s. Sort of tidied that up a bit. Went up to this workshop, met the service manager. I said, I'm Ray. He said, what do you want to mend tellies for? What do you want to get involved in all that for? I said, well, it's my hobby, I've got radios at home and I listen on shortwave, it's my hobby. All right, he said, start Monday morning, be here at 8:30. I thought, is that it? Is that the interview? I planned what I was going to say. I planned all things. I'm interested because of this, and I was interested in science and electronics at school, and nothing. Just, okay, start Monday morning. Fair enough. Went home, told my parents, I've got a job. Start Monday morning. The money was atrocious, but I got myself a job. 15 years old. I turned up at 8:30 Monday morning. And a lot of other engineers turning up, staff all turning up, people everywhere. And Crowley, that's the service manager, the boss, Mr. Crowley, he said, Ray, come with me. Went over to this bench where this lad was. Well, I say lad, he was 20, 25. He said, this is Jeff. Jeff, this is Ray. Ray's just started. Can he be on, with you on your bench? And Jeff said, yeah, fine, yeah. And of course, Crowley cleared off. And Jeff said, right, well, I've got a telly here that I'm just about to have a look at. He said, straight line across the screen, just a straight line, no picture. What do you think that is? Well, I haven't got a clue. How do I know? I said, I don't know. And he said, you see that transformer there? I said, yeah. He said, well, I can't say the word he used. That was a technical term. It's faulty. Let's use that word. It's faulty. The other word started with F, but this one's better, I think, for the video. He said, it's a frame output transformer. It's open circuit. And he said, I'll go and get a second-hand one. We had some scrap tellies. He said, I'll go and get one out of a scrap telly. Take that one out, then you can fit the other one when I bring it back. Anyway, I took this one out, a couple of nuts and bolts. He brought this other one up. I mounted it, soldered it in. And he said, okay, turn the set on. All right, there we are. We've got a picture. I've repaired my first telly. After a few days, I got my own bench. There was a spare bench in the corner. And obviously I was supervised by Jeff and various other people. There was this workshop foreman, Ron. He was very good. Got on well with him. He helped me a lot. I get a telly on the bench and he'd come along and he'd say, right, this is the problem. Show me how to fault find and all that. Luckily, I picked it all up fairly quickly, which was good. After, a few weeks, Crowley said to me, right, come with me. So off we went. He said, you're going down to Recon. Recon was where they reconditioned second-hand tellies ready for sale. Okay, so obviously in the shop they sold new tellies, but also second-hand tellies. Back then most people rented TVs, to be honest. But a lot of people wanted to buy their own. So I went into recon with Crowley, and he said there were what 3-4 lads in there. He said, "Oh, this is Ray. He's working in here now," and he walked out. Oh, okay. Crowley's gone, and these lads, one of them, Rod, this little chap, he came up to me going, "Yeah, coming to work down here, are you? Eh?" And all this business. The hard man. He wasn't a hard man at all. It was an act. So I said, "Well, it looks that way." And the other chaps, they came over, and there was Tony, there was Mervyn, there was Derek, yeah, and this chap Rod. They were great lads, but initiation, big cardboard box, the type of box 23-inch tellies used to come in. They put me in the cardboard box. Okay, kicked a hole in the end, put this fan heater there. It's midsummer, I'm red hot anyway, and I'm in this box, I'm on fire. Eventually they let me out of the box, and one of them said, "You okay?" I said, yeah, just a bit warm. Anyway, after that, one of them threw something out. He said, "Oh, catch this." Instinctive, isn't it? Instinctive, you just catch it. It was a fully charged electrolytic capacitor. Like 400 volts or something. Quite harmless, There were several other initiation things I had to do, but I seemed to have passed. I passed all these tests. So I was one of the lads in recon. I'd arrived. By the way, Crowley, he spoke like that, this way, and he swore quite a lot, so we won't go into that. But recon was a separate building from the main. There was a shop, the workshop, the stores, all that. Then down the road a little bit was this huge, a bit like a double or treble garage. Locked doors on the front from the pavement, and just a big workshop. And it was just totally separate from the rest of the workshop and the main shop, everything. So we were on our own. There was no boss in there. It was just us lads. That was it. We sort of, policed ourselves, I suppose, or not, as the case may be. From day one in there, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. People wouldn't go there. Ron, the workshop foreman upstairs in the main workshop, in all the years I was there, not once did he come down to recon, not once. Dennis, this other chap, he was a funny bloke. He sort of thought he was in charge upstairs as well. He thought he was in charge. I don't know whether he was. Not once did he come down. In fact, none of the lads from upstairs ever came into recon. It was just us. What did we end up? I think 4 of us in there in the end. And we were just left totally alone. The only person that came in was Crowley. And sometimes he'd come in and he'd say, "Ray, 23-inch KB, Smith, 24 Acacia Avenue, phone number, so." And I'd say, yes, Mr. Crowley. I'd get one of the recon tellies down. He wanted whatever it was, 23-inch KB, put it on the bench, show him that it worked. Right, yeah, that's good. Yeah, put it in my car. So I put it in his car. He'd obviously sold it, to a customer. That's the only time he ever came in. Normally he was on the intercom. Hello, and he'd say, "Smith, 52, blah, 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 road." I'd got a pen. Quick, got a pen. Quick, remember that, Smith, 52, what road was it? If you said to him, "Sorry, Mr. Crowley, could you repeat that?" He swore and shouted. I got on very well with Crowley, as you'll find out later, but what a character he was. I'd only been in recon a couple of days. 10 o'clock one morning, the lads said, they went towards the door, they're going outside. I'm thinking, well, where's everyone going? One of them said, "Come on." I said, "Where are we going? You'll see." So I followed them, went up the street, round the corner, into the cafe, which was opposite the railway station. Went to the cafe. And I'm thinking, well, what are we doing here? I said, "What's happening?" "Well, we've come here for breakfast." "Breakfast? It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I'd had breakfast at home. Kind of, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Anyway, he said, "What do you want, this lad?" I said, whatever it was. They paid for it. And we sat there and having breakfast. We only went there once, maybe twice a week for breakfast. The politics, sort of, if you like, in recon was, you wait till Crowley's gone out. That's about 10 o'clock. He went out on his calls. He was there all the time, dishing out the job sheets, the customers, various customers that want their tellies repaired. All the engineers would go out. Then Crowley would go out doing whatever he was doing. That way there's only Ron in charge upstairs, and he wouldn't come into recon anyway. People were frightened. I don't know what they were frightened of, but they were literally frightened to come into recon. They kept away, all of them. So anyway, we had this breakfast. Another thing I noticed, on the wall at the back of the workshop was like a little cupboard thing, a little cupboard, and there were wires going into it. And I was looking at it thinking, what's that? Strange. And there's a padlock on the front. It's locked, you can't get into it. And I said to one of the lads, what's that in that cupboard? Nothing. Nothing. I said, well, it's got wires going into it and it's warm. You put your hand on it, it's warm. Oh, it's nothing, don't worry about that. Well, I did worry about that. I wanted to know what was in the box. Why is it padlocked? And a day or two later, one of them saw me looking at it, and I'm sort of looking at these wires, and he said, oh, hang on a minute, I'll get the key. And he opened it up. He said, there you are, what's that? There's a chassis in there, there's a meter on it, reading whatever, there's valves, they're all lit up, it's going. I said, is that a transmitter? Oh yeah, he said, yeah, it's a transmitter. He said, it's on medium wave, relaying Radio London. Radio London signal wasn't too good in the workshop. So what they did, they built this transmitter, received Radio London, the pirate ships, on a decent aerial outside, then retransmitted it on another medium wave frequency. So wherever you were, in fact, halfway down the town, you took a transistor radio down, you could hear it. So they had a pirate transmitter running in recon. So I was sort of allowed to see that. So I really was becoming one of the lads. I was having breakfast at the cafe. I knew about the illegal transmitter. I really was becoming one of the lads. There was a hole. The walls were like, is it wainscoting, wood? And there's this hole about this big. And I was just looking at the hole one morning, and I said, what's that? What's that big hole doing there? Because there were little holes all round it. And I wondered whether they'd been playing darts or something. But why is this big hole? He said, a shotgun did that, 12-bore shotgun. What? Who's got a shotgun? He said, no, well, so-and-so bought it in, and we were mucking about with it, and we fired it at the wall. There's this big hole in the wall. Of course, the other side of the wood, it was brick. So I just thought, this is it. This is bliss. When I'd been at school, people said to me, oh, best days of your life at school. Well, you wait till you get out to work, you won't like that. Really appreciate your days now, best days of your life. And I remember thinking, I hated school. I thought, if this is the best, what's work like? It's going to be awful. School was bad enough. Work was fantastic. I was just so pleased. I left school at 14 because I ruptured my liver, fell off my bike, ruptured my liver, didn't go back to school. That's how come I went to work at 15 years old. Best days of your life at school? What a load of rubbish. These were the best days of my life, in recon with the lads. So we had our own kind of rules, if you like. In the morning, we recon tellies. Okay, that's when we did the work in the morning. Recondition as many tellies as you can, get them back up on this big shelf. So if anyone came in like Crowley, or a 19-inch KB, 23-inch KB, whatever, we got the whole lot there all done. So he couldn't say, you're not doing your work. So that was the mornings we worked for the company. Afternoons, Crowley didn't get back till about 4, so we were quite safe. No one else would come in. Ron wouldn't come in. Ron lived upstairs. No one came in. So we had the afternoon to do our own stuff. Now, one chap was building a big valve amp, 4 KT88s in push-pull, 2 in parallel, in push-pull. 100 watts, 150 watts, I just what it was going to be capable of. He was working on that in the afternoons. The other chap, he was making a nice wooden cabinet for a record deck. He had a nice record deck, and he lined it all inside with that green, like snooker cloth, what do they call it, beige, whatever it's called, that cloth. It was a professional job. He really had built this cabinet beautifully. He was working on that. Later on, I was building transmitters because I wanted to be a pirate, you see. So later on, I was building transmitters. On Saturday afternoons were strange. I didn't really join in much Saturday afternoons. What happened was everyone's out, Crowley's out. The lads put a couple of tellies on the floor on top of each other to make the square tellies to make a table. They put 4 tellies around to sit on, to seats, and they're playing cards. They're playing poker or something. And they drag out from under one of the benches a crate full of beers, brown ales. So they're sitting there drinking, smoking, playing cards with money. And I'm looking and thinking, they said, you want to join in? I said, no, I haven't got any money. I don't know how to play that anyway. So all I did Saturday afternoons, I either watched a film on the telly or I got on with building my transmitter or whatever I was doing. Later on, as time went by, I took my 19 set. You've heard me bang on about 19 sets in the past. Look, there's my Bar Humbug hat. Look, there we are. Bar Humbug for Christmas. And what I did with the 19 set, I built a mains power supply in it and did it all up, did various things to it. In fact, once, one afternoon it was, Crowley was supposed to be out. I don't know where the lads were. I don't know where they'd gone. I was working on the 19 set. I had the TV here, okay? I always have a TV here. Someone comes in, they can't see what you're doing. Like the Paraset, so I'm working on the Paraset spy radio. So it was, I didn't really look up. I was working, I didn't really look up. And suddenly there's Crowley standing here. Ray, what are you doing? Well, I couldn't lie. I couldn't say, well, I'm mending this telly. I said, oh, I was just looking at, I was going to change the screen feed resistor on the 807. And he said, what value are you going to put in? I said, I don't know, 6.8k, something like that. Oh, no, you want to do this, you want to do that. And I thought, he knows about 19 sets. You know, he's not telling me off. Then he said a couple of other things to do. You want to do this, you want to change that. And have you done this yet? I said, no. Well, do that, you want to change that. Anyway, at the end, he said, he started to walk away. He said, oh, by the way, in your own time in future, not the firm's time. And, yes, Mr. Crowley, Stone the Crows. When I was at school, Sunday would come along, and I didn't enjoy Sunday because school was the next day. You know, I hated Sunday evenings. I hated it because it was school the next day. When I was at work, Sundays, I was looking forward to Monday. Can you believe that? I was looking forward to going to work on Monday because it was, well, one of the chaps there described it as a holiday camp. He said, this isn't going to work, it's like going to a holiday camp. It was. We did all the tellies, as I've said. We made sure that the shelf was full of reconditioned tellies all ready to go. So we did the work, and the rest of it was just, it was fun. I was learning, of course, as well. On the serious side, I was learning about TVs, learning all about electronics, transmitters, of course, all that sort of thing. I'd only been in recon a couple of weeks, and one of the lads said, what are you doing tonight, Friday? I said, well, nothing. He said, okay, give us your address, I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock. I said, where are we going? Oh, you'll see. Anyway, he picked me up at 8 o'clock. We went down the town into a pub. I'm 15. No one cared how old, they didn't care back then. You're buying a beer, so it doesn't matter how old you are. Anyway, then it must have been about 10 o'clock. We walked from the pub to this club, the Karaoke in Worthing. Who remembers that? So we're at the nightclub. I got in. I didn't think I'd get in. I think you had to be 18 or something. I didn't think I'd get in. Anyway, I paid my sixpence or shilling or whatever it was. And that was it. That was the first of many, many nights at the Karaoke Club. Amazing. I learnt a lot more. They taught me all sorts of things there. In fact, here's a photo of me. This is when I was 15. I'm holding, it was Christmas. Was I 15, 16? Those bottles I'm holding, that's Baby Sham. It's not beer, it's Baby Sham. I bought those for some girl I knew, some girl I met at this nightclub. She liked Baby Sham. So I bought her, was it 2 or 3 bottles for Christmas? I was learning not only about televisions, but all sorts of things with the help of the lads. I don't know who took that photo in the workshop, bit of a dodgy pose. That was in the workshop one Christmas. Would that be Christmas? Probably, I don't know, 60, 66? I can't remember. She liked the Baby Sham, by the way, the girl. She did like that. Went out with her for a little while. Another learning curve. Moving on swiftly. That was recon. It was really great. You know, in the old days, it was fantastic. taking my transmitter in, working on that, learning, of course, all the time. I got a TV. I wanted a TV at home in my shed. So I got this TV, and next time Crowley came in, I said, I want to buy this one. And he said, oh, you haven't revalved it, have you? Know, new valves. Sort of. I said, no, which I hadn't. I said, no, I've done it up. I said, but I haven't revalved it. 17 and 6pence for this telly. I thought he was going to say have it for nothing. So anyway, that was it. I got myself a telly and had that in my shed at home, which was my workshop. Put an aerial up. The old 405 lines, of course. BBC One, ITV, UHF, BBC Two, that came in a bit later on. Sadly, my days in Recon ended. I was sent back upstairs to work on tape recorders and record players, amplifiers, that sort of thing. Crowley, he was pretty good. He wanted me to... I worked upstairs for a bit. Then I was in Recon. Then he wanted me to do audio stuff, tape recorders. So I'm kind of getting a knowledge of everything, you know, not just televisions. Because when you've had years of just repairing the old 405 line tellies, we are still learning. You're always still learning, but you know, you want to have a look at a tape recorder as well, a record player, other stuff like that. Tape recorders, I used to enjoy repairing those. That was good fun. I was really disappointed having to leave Recon and go upstairs. Ron was up there, the workshop foreman. This Dennis chap who, I don't know, I didn't like him much. I don't think he liked me, so that was all right. I was getting on well with tape recorders. I've been doing that for a year or so. Record players, you know, quite straightforward stuff really. And one day this chap appeared. I don't know who he was. I didn't know who he was then. And he came over to me and he said, what are you doing? I didn't know who he was. I said, repairing this tape recorder. You know, who's that? He said, right, you're right doing that? I said, yeah. Anyway, off he went. I thought, who the hell was that? I said to this other chap, Colin, I said, who was that? Oh, some new bloke. I forget his name. I said, well, was he in charge or something? Where's Ron? Ron was still there, but this new, I don't know who had... Crowley didn't mention him. Anyway, he wasn't a very nice chap at all. I didn't like him. I didn't like him at all. I had toothache one day. I'm doing this. And he said, what's the matter with you? I thought, that's nice. I said, oh, I've just got toothache. Oh, well, you better clear off home then. You're no good to us with toothache. Anyway, off he went. I didn't go home. It wasn't that bad. I was only doing that. I had a dentist appointment anyway. It's a strange chap. Anyway, I didn't like it. So I said to Crowley, I'll give my notice in. Oh, what were you doing that for? He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to work in marine electronics, which was only round the corner. There's a marine electronics company. Oh, you don't want to do that? He said, you're climbing up ship's masts, doing aerials up there. I said, no, it's not climbing up masts. You know, it's radar, ship-to-shore radio, echo sounders, sonar, all that sort of thing. He said, oh, well, what a waste. Anyway, he wasn't happy. I did go to this other place. That was awful. The work, I loved the work. But it was all the chap there was weird. My immediate boss. We had to go down to Southampton. And anyway, I won't go into all that. That's another completely separate story. I'll tell you about that one day. Eventually, I went back to the radio and TV firm. I'd had enough of this lot. I went back there and I saw Crowley. And I said, got any jobs? He said, oh, Ray, I wonder when you come back. He knew I'd come back. I thought, that's nice. Anyway, he said, yeah, you can start, you know, whether it start now. Okay, I just started then and there. I think it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. I'd just gone in. And there he happened to be there. I was going to see this other chap there that I knew. Anyway, there he was. He said, yeah, start now. So I went upstairs, took my jacket off, started mending tellies just there and then. I didn't stay there too long because the money was rubbish and I don't know, I thought I can't spend my life here. I wanted to go back down into Recon. Oh, one more story about Recon I must tell you before I go. We're down there, this is previous to my leaving and all that, we're down in Recon. Crowley came in with this chap. This is Dave, he's in charge. We're looking at each other and Crowley disappeared. And there's this Dave standing there, got his thermos flask with his tea. and his football scarf. He was a Brighton and Hove supporter. And he had his sandwich tin, his lunchbox. Do you remember those tins? They were metal, cream with a green lid. He'd got his sandwiches there and his thermos flask. And we're thinking, looking at each other, what's this? And he said, oh, hello, is there a free bench? So, well, there's one over there, you can have that. And he said, well, I'm Dave, and he shook my hand. I said, I'm Ray. Went to the other lads, introduced himself. And he said, so what happens down here? Oh, we're looking at each other. Well, we recon tellies. Oh, okay, he said, yeah. And then one of the lads said, and we build transmitters. And we do up army surplus gear. He was thinking of me because that was me. And he's looking like, oh, right, okay. He was all right, actually. He did settle in. It took him a few weeks, but he settled in and he realised that he wasn't the boss. Doesn't matter what Crowley had said, he wasn't the boss, okay? We didn't have a boss in Recon. We just did our own thing, We were all the boss, if you like. We all looked out for each other. If one was getting a bit behind with tellies or one had a problem with a weird fault, we're all on it. So he realised that we didn't need a boss. But he fitted in all right. He was a nice enough chap and I knew him for, a few years. As I say, then I went upstairs and then I left. Then I went back. And when I went back, it wasn't the same. I was put in charge of the audio department. I didn't like that at all. I wanted to go into Recon, have a rest, have some fun. I was in charge of audio and I didn't last long. I don't know why, but I went to another radio and TV company over near Brighton. And I didn't enjoy that at all. I didn't fit in there at all. It was all run properly, there was a proper boss. People worked. They didn't do up 19 sets. They didn't build transmitters, and I'd been spoilt at the first firm. I'd just been spoilt there. I just missed the whole thing. So I didn't last at this one too. What did I do after that? I don't know, I can't remember. But it was over, unfortunately. My sort of initiation, the first few years of my job in radio and TV servicing. I went to tech, I went to college, did all that rubbish. It was a waste of time. That was idiot lecturer bloke there. Oh, that's another story altogether. I'll tell you that one day. My years at college. Oh dear. This bloke used to clean his teeth with a hanky. He'd sit at the top of the class, the lecturer. He'd get his hanky out and he's doing his teeth with his hanky. Weird bloke. He didn't like me. Needless to say, I didn't like him. I got on with most people. I didn't get on with idiots. That was depressing, going to college. I didn't like that. One day, day release, and one evening, just going back to the Recon and when I first went there, the pirate radio transmitter. One day, this chap knocked on the door. We're thinking, who's that knocking on the door? People normally just came in, and someone opened the door, and he said, "Yeah, can I help you?" He thought it was a customer. He said, "You want to go to the shop?" And he said, "No, I'm looking for the radio transmitter." And of course, we're like, what? Who's that? And this chap that opened, I forget who opened the door, Tony, was it? Anyway, he said, "What do you mean radio transmitter? We repair tellies." He said, "I know there's a pirate transmitter, medium wave, coming from this building." And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we've been busted. What's going on? So this chap, I forget who it was now. Anyway, he said, "Well, there's no transmitter here. What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, it's somewhere in this block of buildings." And he said, "This is radio and TV company." He said, "Where's the boss? I want to see the boss." So anyway, he came in, walked in. And we're all saying, "Well, the boss is out at the moment. He's out. He doesn't come around during the day. You'll have to come back." And he said, "Come on, lads, where is it?" And we're all doing this completely innocent act. Well, where's what? Pirate radio? What you mean, like Radio London, Radio Caroline? Well, they're on the ships in the North Sea. They're not here. Anyway, he knew he wasn't getting anywhere, and he disappeared. That was funny. He didn't come back. He didn't see Crowley. Oh, another thing we did. I won't bore you too much, but another thing. Sometimes Crowley came back unexpected, you know. We didn't want him to come in. I've got a bit of army gear on the bench that I'm working on. So one of the lads built a little transistor bug, put it in a box and stuck it up underneath the car, Crowley's car. Okay, we're listening to it on FM radio, one end of the band, this bug. And it worked for a couple of 100 yards, something like that. So when Crowley was coming back, right, we could hear on the radio, we'd hear this bug. So we knew he was no more than 200 yards away, and that worked really well. You know, we knew when he was going out because the signal disappeared. We knew when he was coming back because the signal was there on this radio. We just left it on all the time on that frequency. And one day we didn't hear the signal, and Crowley walked in the door. No, hide what you're doing here, quick! I'm just working on this telly. What had happened, one of the lads went and looked under the car. It had dropped off. I don't know what he'd stuck it on with, but it disappeared. It fell off. So that was the end of that. Happy days. They were really, do you know, they were the best working days anyway of my life in recon in the 1960s. So, happy days. I learnt more from the older people in the workshop than I ever did at college. At college, it was a waste of time. This idiot lecturers that were there, they were just doing their job, I suppose. But it was boring. We had to build a super het radio at college. Okay, you get a blank chassis. You do the power supply first. You mount the mains transformer, the rectifier, the smoothing capacitors, wire it all up. You were meant to make notes in your book. Power supply, right? It does this and it does that. This is how it works. You get the oscilloscope. Here we go, look. And you've got the AC going in, you draw the waveform. Then you've got the half wave rectified. Then the smooth, there's your DC line. You're meant to draw these waveforms. Then you do the audio amp. You build that. And you have to put audio signal in and look at it on the scope and do... You know, I just built the thing. I just built this super het radio. And this bloke that did his teeth with his handkerchief, he came to me and he said, let's have a look at your notes, because the radio was working. And he said, well, you haven't got any notes. I said, well, I've been building power supplies in military gear for ages. Power supplies, in 19 sets and communications receiver, transmitters. I said, I don't need to draw waveforms. He was not happy. You're supposed to... He said, you won't pass the exam. City and Guilds it was. He said, you won't pass. And I thought, anyway, come the exam day, he was at the entrance saying to people, oh, good luck, good luck, Smith, good luck, Rogers, well done. As I walked past, he said to me, you won't pass. I just looked at him. I did pass. And anyway, that was that. Right, do you want more? Ray at G4NSJ.co.uk. Loads more stories, but I mean, if you don't want to see any more or listen to any more, then I won't bother. But we'll see how many people want more of this recollections from the good old days. Thanks for watching. I love reminiscing. I wish I could go back, but of course I can't. Now, losing my voice now. There we are. I've been talking too much. Time to switch off. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye bye for now.